There is a quiet truth about love that many people are not ready to hear. Love is not what someone says when they are calm, comfortable, and everything is going their way. Love reveals itself in moments of tension, in moments of honesty, and in moments when your heart is most exposed. Words are windows into intention. And if you listen carefully, you will realize some words do not come from love, no matter how sweet everything else may seem. Today, I want you to become aware, not fearful, not reactive, but aware. Because awareness protects your peace. When someone says, "You're too sensitive," it may sound small, almost harmless at first. It can be said casually, even with a slight smile, as if it is simply an observation. But if you listen more deeply, you begin to notice what sits underneath these words. It is not understanding. It is not curiosity. It is distance. Sensitivity is not a weakness. It is awareness. It is the ability to feel, to notice subtle shifts in tone, energy, and behavior. A sensitive person does not react without reason. They respond to something that has already been felt, even if it has not yet been spoken. When this is dismissed, it creates a quiet fracture inside. You begin to question your own experience. You begin to wonder if what you feel is valid. And this is where the problem begins, because love does not ask you to doubt your own heart. A person who truly cares will pause when you express emotion. They may not immediately understand, but there is a willingness to look closer, to ask gently, to listen without rushing to correct or silence. There is patience in their presence. But when someone repeatedly tells you that you are too sensitive, they are not trying to understand you. They are trying to make your feelings smaller, more convenient, easier for them to handle. Over time, this changes you. You start holding things in. You stop expressing what bothers you. Not because it no longer matters, but because you have learned that your emotions will not be received with care. You become quieter, more cautious, more guarded, and slowly you disconnect from yourself just to maintain the connection with them. But this is not harmony. This is suppression. True connection allows space for emotion. It does not rush to label it as excessive. It does not reduce it to a flaw. When someone dismisses your sensitivity, they are indirectly saying that your inner world is too much for them. And instead of meeting you where you are, they expect you to come down to a level where nothing feels uncomfortable for them. This is not balance. It is imbalance, disguised as normal. There is also something deeper hidden in this pattern. When your emotions are dismissed often enough, you begin to lose trust in your own perception. You start asking yourself, maybe I am the problem. And once that thought takes root, it becomes easier for the other person to avoid accountability, because now you are doing the work of minimizing your own needs. This is why awareness is important. Not every use of these words carries harm, but repetition reveals intention. When it becomes a habit, it shows a lack of emotional responsibility. It shows an unwillingness to engage with your reality. And in a space where your reality is constantly questioned, you cannot feel safe. And where there is no emotional safety, there is no real love. When someone says, "I didn't ask you to feel that way," it creates an invisible wall between you and them. It may sound logical on the surface, as if emotions are choices that can be controlled or switched off. But emotions do not work like that. They arise naturally, often without permission, as a response to what is experienced internally and externally. These words carry a subtle message. Your feelings are yours alone, and they are not my concern. Instead of moving closer to understand what you are going through, the person steps back and separates themselves from your emotional world. This separation slowly erodes connection. You begin to feel alone, even while being in the presence of someone who is supposed to care. In a genuine connection, there is a willingness to share emotional space, not to take blame for every feeling, but to remain open and present when something arises. There is a quiet effort to understand where those emotions are coming from, even if they are not immediately clear. But when someone responds with detachment, it sends a signal that your inner experience is inconvenient. Over time, this creates hesitation within you. You may start questioning whether you should express yourself at all. You may hold back, not because the feeling disappears, but because you have learned it will not be received with openness. This leads to emotional distance, where conversations become surface level and deeper connection fades. Love does not require perfection in understanding, but it does require presence. It requires the willingness to stay, to listen, and to acknowledge that emotions, even when complex, deserve to be seen rather than pushed away. When someone tells you, "You're overthinking everything," it can feel like your thoughts are being dismissed before they are even understood. It suggests that what is happening inside your mind has no real value, as if your need to reflect, to analyze, or to question is somehow excessive. But often, overthinking is not random. It comes from noticing patterns, inconsistencies, or shifts that have not been clearly addressed. The mind tries to make sense of what the heart feels, but cannot fully explain. When this process is shut down with a simple label, it creates confusion. You begin to wonder whether your thoughts are valid or if you should ignore them entirely. And this is where disconnection begins, not just from the other person, but from yourself. You may start silencing your own inner voice to avoid being seen as difficult or complicated. A person who truly cares does not rush to label your thoughts as unnecessary. Instead, they bring clarity. They respond with openness, helping to create a space where questions can be explored rather than avoided. They understand that when someone is thinking deeply, it often means they are trying to feel secure, to understand, to find stability. But when someone repeatedly dismisses your thoughts, it can become a pattern of avoidance. Rather than addressing what may be causing uncertainty, they reduce it to a flaw within you. This shifts the focus away from the real issue and places the burden entirely on your mind. Over time, this can lead to self-doubt. You may stop asking questions, even when something feels unclear. Not because clarity has been reached, but because you have been taught that your thoughts are too much to handle. When someone says, "If you really loved me, you would," it may sound like a request, but beneath the surface, it carries pressure. It ties your love to a condition, as if your feelings must be proven through compliance. Instead of love being freely given, it becomes something that must be demonstrated in a specific way, according to their expectations. This creates an imbalance. Love, in its natural form, does not demand proof through sacrifice of your comfort, your boundaries, or your values. It does not place you in a position where you must choose between staying true to yourself and keeping the connection intact. But when this phrase is used, it quietly pushes you into that conflict. You begin to feel responsible for maintaining the relationship by meeting these conditions. You may start doing things not because they feel right, but because you fear what it would mean if you refused. The focus shifts from mutual understanding to obligation. And in that shift, something important is lost. Your sense of freedom within the connection. A person who truly cares about you does not measure your love by how much you are willing to give up. They do not use your feelings as leverage to influence your decisions. Instead, they respect your boundaries, even when those boundaries do not align with their desires. There is patience, not pressure. There is dialogue, not demands. When love is used as a tool to control behavior, it no longer remains love in its pure form. It becomes persuasion, shaped by guilt. And over time, this kind of dynamic can make you question whether you are giving enough, even when you are already giving more than you should. When someone says, "I'm just like this, deal with it," it may appear as honesty, as if they are simply being real about who they are. But if you listen more carefully, you will notice something deeper within those words. It is not self-awareness. It is resistance. It is a refusal to look inward, a refusal to grow, and a quiet expectation that you should adapt instead. Growth is a natural part of any meaningful connection. Two people come together with different experiences, different habits, different ways of seeing the world. And within that space, there is an opportunity to evolve, not to lose oneself, but to become more aware, more balanced, more considerate. When someone truly values the relationship, they are willing to reflect on their actions. They are willing to ask themselves, is there something I can do better? But when a person hides behind the phrase, "This is just who I am," they close that door completely. It becomes a fixed identity, one that cannot be questioned, cannot be challenged, and cannot be improved. And in doing so, they place all the responsibility on you. You are the one who must adjust. You are the one who must tolerate. You are the one who must carry the weight of their unwillingness to change over time. This creates a quiet imbalance. You may start compromising more than you should. You may accept behaviors that do not sit well with you, convincing yourself that this is simply the way things are. You begin to shrink certain parts of yourself just to keep the peace. Not because you agree, but because you feel there is no other option if you want to maintain the connection. But a connection that requires you to constantly adapt while the other person remains unchanged slowly drains your energy. There is also a deeper layer to this pattern. When someone refuses to grow, they are not only limiting themselves, they are limiting the relationship. Because relationships are not static. They require movement, adjustment, and awareness from both sides. Without this, the connection becomes stuck, repeating the same patterns again and again, without resolution. A person who truly cares does not expect you to simply deal with it. They recognize that their actions have an impact, even if change is not immediate. There is an openness, a willingness to try, a recognition that your experience matters. They do not hide behind their habits as an excuse. Instead, they see those habits as something that can be understood and, when necessary, improved. When someone refuses this process, what they are really saying is that their comfort is more important than the health of the connection. They choose familiarity over growth, ease over effort. And while this may feel stable on the surface, it creates a deeper instability underneath because your needs remain unaddressed. Addressed, you may find yourself repeating the same conversations, hoping for a different response, hoping for a moment of realization that never quite arrives. And with each repetition, a quiet exhaustion builds. Not because you are asking for too much, but because you are asking the wrong person to meet you at a level they are not willing to reach. And when willingness is absent, no amount of patience can create change. When someone says, "You're lucky I'm with you," it may be framed as a joke or said with a light tone, but beneath it lies a subtle form of control. It places one person above the other, creating an imbalance where your value is quietly diminished while theirs is elevated. Instead of feeling appreciated, you begin to feel as though you must be grateful simply to be chosen. This shifts the dynamic in a very quiet but powerful way. Love is meant to feel equal. It is not about one person being more important, more desirable, or more worthy than the other. But when this phrase is used repeatedly, it introduces a hierarchy. You may start comparing yourself, wondering if you truly measure up, questioning whether you deserve the relationship at all. Over time, this can affect how you see yourself. You may begin to accept less than you deserve because you feel fortunate just to have them. Your standards lower, not because your needs have changed, but because your sense of worth has been subtly influenced. And once this mindset takes hold, it becomes easier for the other person to maintain control because you are no longer standing on equal ground. A person who genuinely values you does not make you feel replaceable or inferior. They do not position themselves as someone you should feel lucky to have. Instead, they recognize that connection is mutual. They see you as someone they are equally fortunate to be with, because real love does not create imbalance. It creates respect, where both people feel valued without needing to compete for worth. When someone says, "No one else would put up with you," the words carry a weight that goes far beyond the surface. It is not just a statement. It is an attempt to reshape how you see yourself. It plants a quiet seed of doubt, suggesting that you are difficult, unworthy, or somehow too much for anyone else to accept. At first, you may resist it. But when such words are repeated, they begin to settle deeper into your thoughts. You may start questioning your own value, wondering if there is truth behind what is being said. And this is where the damage begins. Not in the words alone, but in how they slowly influence your perception of yourself. This phrase creates fear. Fear that if you leave, you will be alone. Fear that no one else will understand you, accept you, or stay. And because of that fear, you may tolerate things you would not normally accept. You stay, not because you feel respected or valued, but because you have been led to believe that this is the best you can have. This is not love. A person who truly cares about you does not make you feel like a burden that must be endured. They do not frame the relationship as something they are tolerating. Instead, they see you as someone to appreciate, someone whose presence adds value to their life. When someone tells you that others would not accept you, they are not revealing your worth. They are revealing their own perspective. And often, it is a perspective shaped by control, not care. Over time, this kind of language can make you shrink, not outwardly, but within yourself. You begin to hold back parts of who you are, trying to become easier, quieter, more acceptable. Not because you want to grow, but because you feel you must reduce yourself to be kept. And now, after hearing all of this, do not rush to judge. Do not rush to react. Just observe. Observe the words that are spoken to you, not once, but repeatedly. Observe how they make you feel, not in the moment, but over time, because truth does not always shout. Sometimes It reveals itself quietly through patterns. Love is not proven by occasional kindness. It is revealed through consistent respect. If someone's words leave you feeling small, confused, or unworthy, then it is not your heart that is flawed. It is the environment that is not aligned with your worth. You were not created to be tolerated. You were not created to be diminished. You were not created to question whether you deserve love. Real love brings clarity. It brings calm. It brings a sense of being seen, heard, and valued without needing to fight for it. So take a step back and be honest with yourself, not about who they could become, not about what you hope they will change into, but about what is already being shown to you. Because when you stop ignoring the truth, you stop betraying yourself. And in that moment, you begin to choose differently, not from fear, not from loneliness, but from self-respect. And the moment you choose yourself with clarity, you make space for a kind of love that does not need to be questioned at all.